Hi guys, thought you might be interested to see this. This is a Pi 400 in the case. So if you just pop this out, so you'll see that in the case here, I've just about got enough space for the Pi 400, the mouse and the micro HDMI to HDMI cable and a USB to USB Type-C cable. Now what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to connect the Pi 400 into the front of the amp here, just for convenience. And fortunately this amp will supply just about enough power via the USB cable to run the Pi 400. Now obviously if you wanted to, you could connect it using a USB-C power supply and plug the HDMI directly into a TV or a monitor, but in this case we'll plug it via the amp and that'll feed in turn up to the TV. Okay, so there you go, we've got our connections into the amp. And we'll connect our micro HDMI into the Pi and our USB-C for power into the Pi as well. Okay, and then we'll plug in our mouse into one of the USB ports there. I don't matter which one. Okay, and because we're going to be using this to run some games, we're also going to plug in a USB Competition Pro joystick. Okay, so this Pi 400 has been configured with a DietPI image, which is effectively a stripped down version of Raspbian or Raspberry Pi OS. Included with the image is got a copy of Amiberry, which is the Amiga emulator or one of the Amiga emulators, and that has got an Amiga OS or Workbench 3.1 image running on it. It's also got the UAE GFX video drivers so that we can run at a higher resolution. So power on to the TV, and we'll turn the amp on, pop it on the right input onto the HDMI input for the amp. Okay, let's just adjust the tripod so you can see what's going on. That's come up with Workbench 3.1 and you can see that's running in quite a high resolution. We just check the resolution. So if we go into preferences and screen mode, you can see that's currently running in 960 by 540, currently 8-bit resolution, but we could run that a little higher if we wanted to. The only minor gotcha is if you run it in too high resolutions, sometimes it causes problems with some applications like Dopus, for example. So that's why we're only running it in 8-bit, and that generally seems to work fine. And just to prove that point, if we right click, go to our tools menu, we've got Dopus there on the tools menu, and usually if it's going to cause problems, then it's when we quit. So we'll just quit out of there again, and you can see that seems fine. So as part of this build, let me just show you this. So if we go to about, you can see we're using the 3.1 Workbench ROM, and Kickstart, yeah, is reporting as version 40.68 and Workbench version as 40.42. This will incidentally run fine with Workbench 3.1.4, but the UAE GFX video drivers don't appear to be fully supported, so that's why I'm currently running with a 3.10 ROM. And again, just to show you this, if we go into prefs screen mode, you can see it's using the UAE video drivers there. Okay, so if we go into run, let's just show you this first. So if we fire up the web browser, you can see here it's running AWeb version 3.5 Lite. If we go into F12 for the menu and look at miscellaneous, you can see here that BSD socket library is enabled, and that's basically providing the IP stack for our connectivity. So there you go, that's how our browser is able to connect to the internet. The other option would be to use a driver that's supported, such as an A2065. If we go to google.com, it's going to prompt me to accept the cookie. We'll accept that, and it's going to let me know that it's an unsecure connection. We'll accept that, and there you go, there's Google. Now obviously it's quite an old browser, but fundamentally that is working. Okay, so let me just show you this. Actually, this machine is currently set up to run as a 6A030. Found that a 6A030 was more compatible than a 6A040 for certain games. CPU is currently set to fastest possible. Chipset currently using AGA as an Amiga 4000. The ROM that we're using is Kickstart 3.1 for a 4000. Got 2 megs of chip RAM, 8 megs of fast RAM, and then 128 megs of real-time graphics memory, and as much other additional memory as we can get away with. 2 floppy drives currently enabled, a number of different hard drives in this case for the system, applications, games and demos. We've got our display set up as 1920 by 1080 full screen. We've got our joystick input set to SpeedLink Competition Pro, and we've also got our fire button with a custom configuration so that we can use left or right fire button. Okay, we've already looked at the BSD socket, and that's about it. So if we just resume there, what we've also got installed is iGame version 2 as part of this build. So if I launch iGame, and I've already pre-indexed a number of games, but I'm not going to show you all of them, I'll just show you a handful. So if we look at, for a change actually, Xenon II, we launch that, and we'll skip the intro and we'll include the trainer. So this is obviously a WHD load game. Okay, so you can see that's come up full screen, and it should be configured with the joystick already. So now I'm using the Competition Pro joystick here. Okay, so as you can see, the response on this is absolutely fantastic. Okay, so great game mode this is. I won't play much more, but I think you get the idea. But quite often with software emulators, you experience a bit of a lag, especially with USB controls, but there is no lag at all, no noticeable lag anyway, and I would say that the gameplay is absolutely fantastic, almost as good as playing on native hardware, and certainly comparable to running this on something like a Mr. FPGA. Okay, there we go, let's quit out of that. So WHD load, so F10 to come out typically. Now let me show you something else. Some games, especially some of the older games that were written back in the days of the A500, will play just too fast to be usable. And one of those is Buggy Boy, and I'll show you what that's like when you run it on full speed. So bearing in mind we've got this set up for the fastest possible processor speed, and we launch Buggy Boy. Okay, so again all the joystick controls are working absolutely fine, but if you watch the speed at which this actually plays, right, great fun but pretty much unplayable. Okay, so that's not going to work. But if I go back into the menu and note I can do this in real time, and I go into the CPU settings and I set it back down to 7 megahertz, then we retry the gameplay, and that is pretty reasonable. That's comparable, if not slightly faster actually, than an A500, but perfectly playable. I've run out of time obviously because I burn a lot of time in changing my settings, but we'll start the game again and you'll see. Okay, here we go. Okay, again, not going to play too much of it, but you get the idea. Absolutely perfectly playable when you set the CPU speed down to 7 megahertz. So we'll come out of there. Again, WHD load game, so F10 brings us out. And let's try something else. Okay, so I'll give you a quick demonstration on Pacmania as well. Before we do that, we'll set the CPU speed back up. So it's F12 to get back into the menu, and then we'll go back into our CPU settings and select fastest and resume, or whatever you feel comfortable playing at. And then we'll just launch Pacmania. And again, we're going to be playing with the Competition Pro USB joystick. Okay, and we've mapped this, as I mentioned earlier, so that both left and right fire buttons can be used. In this case, for Pacmania, fire button is jump. Perfectly playable, and you can see the jumps working. Yeah, both left and right fire buttons. So that little tweak in the Amiberry setup is, well, in my opinion, definitely worthwhile. Okay, so there you go. So we won't play too much of that, but again, you get the idea. And it's F10 to come back out, being a WHD load game. It's worth having a look at the state-of-the-art demo to get an idea just how well this emulator performs. So it's probably worth mentioning this is on a 55-inch 1080p screen. Okay, so I'm not going to play it all, but you get the idea. Absolutely flawless on that demo. Okay, so it's worth mentioning that I've got this running in 16:9 aspect ratio. Now, purists will say, oh, you should be running it full 3, but for me personally, even though there is a little bit of distortion on the aspect ratio, personally I'm quite happy to tolerate that, and I don't think that it's too bad in this particular resolution. I'd rather have it fill the screen when I'm playing games than have the black borders, big black borders down the side. You still, on some games, get a little black border, but I'm prepared to live with that. But again, it's all personal preference, and you can obviously set it up whichever way you feel comfortable to suit your own taste. So we'll do one more game demo and then have a look at something else, because I'm sure most people will be interested to see what Sysinfo reports. So I'm going to give you a quick demo on Zool, and the reason I'm going to show you that is because depending on how you've got the emulator set up, sometimes you get a little bit of distortion. Zool's one of the games that I did find that was happening, but with a 68030 it seems absolutely fine. So let's have a quick look at that. So again, before we do, we'll just go back into the CPU settings just to confirm. So we can see here that it's currently set up for a 68030 and it's set up for fastest. So we'll resume there and then we'll run up Zool. Okay, you can see it's still suffering a little bit of the gremlin with the video, but it doesn't cause any problems with the gameplay, so I can live with that. Okay, and there you go. No distortion, or no noticeable distortion at any rate on the video, and the playback is absolutely flawless. Even if my gameplay skills are a bit lacking. Okay, so there you go. So we won't play too much more of that one, but as you can see, gameplay is, I would say, flawless. There's no gremlins on the video. That's absolutely fine. So there you go. That's Zool, and you'll see, incidentally, just how quickly Workbench loads up. I mean, even on a cold boot, it's literally about 10 seconds. It's extremely quick. Okay, so this time what we'll do is we'll go into Sysinfo, and in fact on the apps volume we've got Sysinfo version 4, so let's run that one. Okay, and just do a simple speed test. Okay, so there you go. So debate as to how accurate Sysinfo is, but just to give us an idea, it's reporting as 29.58 times the speed of an A4000 with a 68040 at 25 megahertz, which is pretty impressive. And you can see from the gameplay and the response when we're navigating around the workbench just how fast that really is. Okay, so we'll quit back out of there. Okay, and let's show you one more thing. So I'm going to show you the mod tracker playback. So if we go into music and then Hippo player, and we'll add a mod file. So let's go into volumes and then demos, mods, and in here we come down to X, and we should have, yeah, Xenon 2.mod, and we'll play that. There you go, in stereo, even through the amp, that sounds absolutely fantastic. Obviously, you can't quite appreciate the sound reproduction in the same way, but I'd say that was very good indeed. Okay, so we'll just come out of there. And really, that's about it. See, I've tried it with some other applications. I'll show you just one other application. So if we go into Run, here you go, we've got Kindwords 3 install. And apart from the fact that I don't have a mouse mat, there you go. Absolutely fine on the Kindwords 3 word processor. So we'll just quit out of there. That's it. Okay guys, that's about it. So there you go, there's one Pi 400, completely standard spec, running DietPI with Amiberry as part of the build, and an Amiga Amiga 4000 emulated using Amiberry, and a demo of a few of the games and other applications. So there you go, enjoy, see you next time.